Have you had clients who come in and you're not sure exactly where to start? Have you heard of the osteopathic concept of listening to the body? Well, in today's episode, I share a case study about a client who came to see me after a fall. Listen in to hear what I found and how I helped her.
Hello, friends. This is Lynn Schulte, and you are listening to the Birth Healing Summit podcast. We are here for meaningful conversations that will transform the way you work with pregnant and postpartum clients. Whether it is a new perspective, tool, or technique, you'll be able to implement it into your practice today. I invite you to sit back, listen with an open mind, and grab the golden nugget today's guest has to offer. Now let's get started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode. And today I'd like to share a case study with you that is not pregnancy or postpartum related. I'm not sure how this client got referred to me, but probably from a friend of a friend or whatever. But she came to me and she was complaining about left-sided neck shoulder pain that she's had for a long, long time. She's seen lots and lots of practitioners. She noticed that she had this difficult encounter with a friend and stress increased, and so her pain got worse. And she also has some pulling in her left ear, and she's been getting some testing done to see what's going on. The MRI was negative, but so something's going on in her left ear, left shoulder, left neck. And so I just listened to her body. And what I definitely could feel that tension in the left upper trap, her first rib, and it was all just locked down. Like there was no movement, no ability to even mobilize it much. Her craniosacral rhythm, so the expansion and contraction of her cranium was all locked down on her left side. So nothing was happening on her left side. So I just had her tune into and just, I'm not sure if I held her neck or shoulders or her head or whatever, but I just asked her to tune into that left side and just see what came up from her for her. And what she shared was like, oh, I fell down the stairs and I landed on my left side. And as soon as she said that, there was this like gentle softening in her body. And so I knew we were on the right topic. And so I just asked her to go back to that event and to see, what was going on, what was happening for her. And basically it came down to that left side was basically frozen, and her body felt like she died during that fall. And so we shifted that limiting belief that I died, and everything just softened. And then I was able to feel her craniosacral rhythm better, and we just helped to release and stretch out those muscles that had been held tight for so long, and got her craniosacral rhythm moving better. And she got off the table and she was just amazed at how much better she felt. So what's interesting is I just got done seeing her today for her second visit. And she came in today and she told me that 2 days after her last session, she fell riding an electric bike. And she fell on her left side this time, and the bike fell on top of her. And she said she had bruising on her hip and she had a big bruise on her elbow. And she went in and got x-rays. X-rays revealed that nothing was broken, but it did reveal that she had hip dysplasia on her right side. And that kind of explained a lot of the left hip and low back issues that she's been having for quite a while. And so first off, as I heard that story, in my mind, there was like a ding, that we had gotten her feeling good after that last session. And within 2 days, she has another accident. In my mind, I'm wondering if we're going to encounter a limiting belief about something, because she was feeling good and all of a sudden, she created another accident or issue in her body. And so how I started this session off, I didn't share that with her. I just kept it in the back of my mind as I started working on her body. And I always start at the feet with my sessions, and just kind of lift up the legs and see what the body is showing me about what the legs are showing me about the body. And on her, I just, as I scan up the body, I just really got drawn into the whole right pelvis area. And there was a difference between left and right leg. I think the left leg felt a little heavier, if I remember correctly. And so I knew I needed to focus on that right pelvis, but I wasn't quite sure the best way to hold that pelvis. And so I just kind of wrapped my hands from like around the ASIS and underneath the left ischium or the left PSIS area, and was just kind of holding that ilium. And what I felt was that the ilium was going into outflare. So energetically, I was just tuning into what does this bone want to do, is the question that I was asking the bone. And it went into an outflare. And that made sense to me. The way she fell, she probably put more pressure on the PSIS and laterally, and that created this torquing into an outflare. And then I slid my hand underneath her ischiums, and her right ischium was so hard compared to her left, and had decreased mobility, and she could really feel that. In fact, it felt tender to her as I was mobilizing it. And so I just kind of held that ischium and gave it some compression. I think I was just doing like a PA to it, and then it softened, and then I mobilized it again. She's like, "Oh, it's no longer tender anymore," and it really had softened. And as I was doing that, I was like, "Oh, I need to do my side lying technique that I teach in both my pregnancy and postpartum holistic treatment of the postpartum body courses." And so I got her in side lying. And I believe what I did, which is opposite, it's not what I teach, but just intuitively, I knew this is what it needed. I thought I was going to go in and do iliac crest to ischium and kind of rebalancing it that way. But actually, one hand went on the ASIS and the other hand went on the PSIS. And I just kind of like let it do what it wanted to do. And it started going more into outflare. And I just kind of followed that. And then all of a sudden it just kind of moved immediately. And then there was this beautiful, just like, like the ilium just, or the iliac crest just like softened underneath my hands. And then I just kind of tuned into ischium, and ischium was nicely balanced as well. And so that I had her lay on her back again, and then I just kind of compared ASISs, and there was still a little tension in that right ASIS, and so I just offered it some slight compression, and then that softened as well. And so then I felt like I'm like, okay, I think we got the pelvis. Then I got drawn up to her cervical thoracic junction, and I just slid my hand underneath her neck and shoulders and put my other hand on her clavicles and just kind of let that area unwind. And I was definitely feeling more tension on the right side of her clavicle and shoulder. And so then that softened a little bit. And then I went up and I just checked into the cranium. And I'm trying to remember here. When I put my hands on the cranium, there was definitely, yeah, there was a pull inferiorly on the right. And so I just kind of followed that, let it soften, and then it came back up. And then I was drawn to, I moved to the right side of the table, and I held her elbow, and then I just had my hand on the top of her shoulder. And it just felt like the tissues, the bones wanted a gentle compression. And so I offered it that, and then there was this beautiful relaxation. And then after that, I just did a dural tube release to kind of clear it from that central channel. And as I was holding that, I was just kind of asking her questions, and I forget exactly how I wish I could record my sessions, but I was asking her, I'm like, so do you have you had a lot of good in your life? And she's like, oh no, I haven't had any good in the last 4 years, and since COVID, she said. And she has a kitty cat that she loves dearly and is her companion. She's not married. and has never had kids. And her kitty cat was her companion, and she just had to put her kitty cat down a couple of months ago. So in the last 3 years, it was just one thing after another with the cat's health not doing well. And so no, she's like, no, I just have a lot of bad, lot of bad, lot of bad. And so somehow I got onto the other thing, wait, I want to, before I go start talking about the limiting belief that we shifted, um, she told me that she's been seeing since her fall, 2 days after our last session, and we weren't scheduled for another month after I saw her last time. She's been seeing some chiropractor and a PT. And she did tell me that the PT did some electrical stim on her. And after she did the stim, that her back just seized up on her. And I was explaining to her that that made sense to me why it did it, because the stim, if it's just trying to kind of relax the muscles or get the muscles to release without addressing the malposition of her pelvic bones that were impacted from the fall, then her body is going to seize up because the bones aren't supported anymore. And this is one of the key concepts that I teach in my courses, is that we really need to pay attention to, why are the muscles tight in the first place? And when we're dealing with the pelvis can easily get shifted, especially after birth. And then the muscles are really just trying to hang on and keep the bones together and keep it in a good position. And I feel like that's exactly what was happening for her, with her pelvis being more of an in and out flare. The muscles are just trying to help stabilize her. And when we do things to try to get the muscles to release without addressing the bone first, we're going to cause more problems. And so when it comes to tight muscles, I always try to address the organs first and then the bones. And if there's any organ that might be attached or connected somehow to the muscle that's tight, treat that and then treat the bones. Get the bones happy first, and then go work with the muscles, especially with pelvic floor. You've got to treat the bones, the pelvic bones first. Okay, so now, so I did treat the bones, and then the muscles just relaxed, and she felt so much better. So then we're working on the um, the limiting belief. So that um, I had a sense that she may have a limiting belief, and I wasn't quite sure what the limiting belief was, but this idea of feeling better and then having an accident happen to you is, to me, is a limiting belief that created that. And so I asked her, I'm like, so how do you feel about good in your life? I think that's the question I asked her. How do you feel about good in your life? She's like, oh, I haven't had any good in my life in the last 4 years. And I was like, okay. And then, so then we were talking about that. And then, so that's when I said, well, how do you feel about good? And she kind of like, I don't know. And I said, appease me here. I want you to say two statements, and I want you to just see what you sense in your body when you say them. And and I said, and if it doesn't resonate, if neither of them doesn't resonate, throw them away. It's fine. I'm not attached to this, but I'm just curious. And so I had her say, I deserve good, and then I don't deserve good. And I asked her to say those two out loud. And then I asked her, what'd you notice? And she goes, oh, the last one, I don't deserve good, landed really heavy. Or I think something tightened up in her body. And I'm like, so your body agreed with that statement? And she's like, yes. And so then I had her shift that limiting belief to I deserve good. That's what she came up with. And her body just kind of softened and relaxed, and she stood up, and she felt much better in her body. And her homework for her was to look for the good in her life, because for the last 4 years, her filter has only been bad, 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 bad. And what we focus on expands. So I told her I want her to look for the good. and start having gratitude for the good in your life. And let's shift your focus from everything being bad to everything is good. And the more you focus on that, the more that's going to expand. So I'm super excited to see what happens the next time I see her and what happens. But it's not a coincidence when your client has, you do really good work and you get them in a good space, and then boom, something bad happens. There's usually a limiting belief at play that created that negative experience after the good. It's oh, what's that one book? It's called The Glass Ceiling, right? We can only accept the good to the level that we are okay with. And anything above that, then we have to sabotage ourselves. And that's exactly what happened for her. She was sabotaging her good. And so I'm excited to see what happens for her in the future. But this, to me, is a perfect example of implementing the work that I teach on someone who's not pregnant, not postpartum, and really learning to listen to the body and letting the energy of what happened or what the bone or tissues want to do to guide you to help it to release and let go. So I hope this was helpful, and I love sharing all this stuff with you guys. So thanks so much for listening. Please share it with other practitioners if you feel they'll find it helpful. And I will look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Here is to smoother births and faster recoveries. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Today's podcast was brought to you by the Institute for Birth Healing. To discover more, visit instituteforbirthhealing.com. To claim $50 off of any online course, use coupon code PODCAST50 at checkout. Till next time, I'm Lynn Schulte, founder of the Institute for Birth Healing.